All right, before we jump in, just a quick heads up. This explainer is AI generated. It's based entirely on the open source 2025 National Threat Assessment from the Norwegian Police Security Service, and we've put it together for academic purposes in the crisis and emergency management field. Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving deep into Norway's National Threat Assessment for 2025. We're going to break down exactly what Norway's own security service sees as the biggest, most critical challenges on the horizon for the coming year. And to kick things off, just look at this quote. It's from Biana Gangas, the head of the PST, and wow, it really sets a serious tone, doesn't it? She's basically saying, look, the world is a messy place right now, and we can't pretend that isn't going to affect us here at home. So this report is going to be our roadmap for this explainer. It's the official take from the PST on, well, pretty much everything. We're talking state-sponsored espionage, domestic extremism, the whole shebang. So let's get right into it and unpack what they found. So let's start with the big picture. The world is just a more dangerous place right now. And this is really the core message right at the top. The report kicks off with this really stark warning that the threats coming from other countries are more unpredictable and just more demanding than anything Norway has seen in decades. This isn't your classic Cold War spy stuff anymore. It's a whole new, much more complex ballgame. Okay, so let's dig into that a little more. What exactly are these external pressures from other states? The report gets pretty specific. One of the key ideas the report brings up is this concept of composite threats. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Think of it like a cocktail of hostile actions. It's not just one thing, like a cyber attack on its own. It's a blend of espionage, sabotage, disinformation campaigns, all of it thrown together to create chaos and undermine democracy. And no surprise here, the report points the finger directly at Russia as the #1 state threat. But here's what's really chilling and kind of new. The PST says Russia is showing an increased willingness to carry out actual physical sabotage on European soil. And the scariest part, the report says it's actually probable this could happen in Norway. So you might be asking, how do they get away with this? Well, one of the main tricks is using what are called proxy actors. It's like outsourcing your dirty work. A state can use criminal networks or other groups that aren't officially tied to them to do the job for them. That way, their hands look clean and they have plausible deniability.
All right, next up is China. The threat here is a bit different, maybe more subtle, but it's definitely growing. With China, the lines get really blurry between, say, a normal business deal and state-sponsored espionage. They might invest in a tech company, but the real goal could be to get their hands on valuable technology or to influence politics from the inside. And this leads to a really nasty tactic called transnational repression. This is when a country doesn't just silence critics at home, they reach across the globe to monitor, intimidate, or even harm people who speak out against them, even if those people are living in a free country like Norway. It's a direct assault on democratic freedoms happening right on Norwegian soil. The report also puts a spotlight on Iran, and here the assessment is blunt. Iran uses terrorism as a tool of foreign policy. And just like we saw with Russia, they often use those proxies we talked about, sometimes even criminal networks, to carry out attacks on dissidents or on Jewish and Israeli targets in Europe. Okay, so that's the view from the outside looking in. But what about the threats from within? Let's switch gears and talk about extremism inside Norway. Now, to get a handle on this, the PST has this really useful terror threat scale. It's a pretty simple 1 to 5 system, from none all the way up to critical. It gives us a clear, standardized picture of how serious they think the situation is. So what's the number for Norway right now? It's a 3, moderate. And you really need to understand what moderate means in this context. It doesn't mean not a big deal. It means the PST believes it is possible that someone, right now, has both the intention and the ability to carry out a terror attack inside the country. That's a pretty sobering thought. So where's this threat coming from? The report breaks it down into 2 main camps: extreme Islamism and right-wing extremism. Now, their motivations are pretty different. For extreme Islamists, it's often fueled by global conflicts and propaganda from groups like ICE or Al-Qaeda. For right-wing extremists, it's more about conspiracy theories, often centered on the idea that the white race is under attack. The report does note that right now, they see the Islamist threat as more severe, largely because of a recent wave of attacks elsewhere in Europe. And you can really see why they're concerned when you look at the numbers. This chart shows a really sharp jump in both foiled and executed Islamist terror plots across the West in just the past year. That increase is a huge reason why the threat level is where it is.
But here's the thing that connects both of these extremist movements: digital radicalization. This is the main arena. We're not talking about some shady, dark web forums anymore. This stuff is spreading on popular apps, things like TikTok. And what's really, really worrying is the number of young people, minors, who are getting sucked into this. Often these are kids who are already struggling with things like mental health or feeling left out, which makes them prime targets.
All right, so we've got pressure from the outside from states and pressure from the inside from extremists. So what happens when you put it all together? Well, the last part of the report looks at the impact this has on democracy itself.
And the conclusion is pretty stark. All these things combined, they chip away at societal trust. You know, that basic faith we have in our institutions and in each other? That's the glue that holds a democracy together, and it's being directly challenged.
And this isn't some abstract theory. You can see it in a very real way when you look at what's happening to government officials. The PST predicts that threats and harassment against them are going to go up, especially with an election coming in 2025. And think about the effect of that. It could make politicians afraid to speak their minds, or even drive good people out of public service entirely. That's a direct hit on the democratic process. Which really leaves us with the big, lingering question from this whole assessment. In a world where threats aren't simple and siloed anymore, but are complex and all tangled together, how does a country like Norway, an open and democratic society, actually build up the resilience it needs to defend itself?
So there you have it, our look at Norway's National Threat Assessment for 2025. Of course, if you want to get into all the details, the full report is out there and available from the PST. Thanks so much for tuning into this explainer.
And hey, if you found this useful and want more explainers on security and preparedness, do us a favor and follow Crisis Compass right here on YouTube. Thanks again, stay informed and stay safe.